Okay, we're good, Brent.
Okay, I call this meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron accept the agenda for May 4th, 2020 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? And again, just speak up. I see Anita.
Trevor seconds. Trevor seconds.
Trevor seconds. All in favor? Oh, we got to do recorded vote.
Yeah, that'll be a recorded vote.
So I'll hand it over to you.
So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron accept the agenda for the May 4th, 2020 council meeting as presented. Deputy Reeve-Syke.
Yes.
Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Paul, you might.
Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney. Councillor McBurney, you're muted right now.
What's that?
Oh, you were just muted. So do you want? How are you voting on this motion?
I missed all that, sorry.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron accept the agenda for the May 4th, 2020 council meeting as presented.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that vote carries 7-0.
Okay, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Again, just speak up. Not hearing anyone, we'll move along. Public comments, opportunity for any public member to speak about anything we have on the agenda tonight. Do we have anybody there tonight, Carson?
Through you, your worship. Yep. So Denny is on the line again, as well as our two delegations. So if either of them wanted to speak to any item on the agenda, they could.
Not hearing any. I'm going to go on to number 5, consent agenda. The Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 and further that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 and 5.3.3 for information. Do I have a mover?
Paul.
Do I have a seconder?
Chris.
Chris, any questions or comments from anybody on those? Not hearing any. I'm going to hand it over to Carson for a roll call. Carson, you're muted.
My bad. So this will be a recorded vote. So Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson. Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve-Syke.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
1 second. 6.1, John Graham of Viola Water Canada 2019 Annual Activity Report that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby received the presentation from John Graham, Viola Water Canada regarding the 2019 Annual Activity Report for information. And further that the Council received the 2019 Annual and Summary Reports for the Blythe and Wingham Water Systems for information. And further that 2019 Annual and Summary Reports for the Blythe and Wingham Water Systems be available for the public free of charge and posted on the Township website. I'm going to get a mover and a seconder. We're going to ask John to speak to it, I believe. So could I have a mover? I have Anita, seconder.
Rick.
Rick seconds. Okay. Jonathan.
Good evening, Your Worship. Can you hear me?
We can.
And Carson, I think we talked that you're going to flip the pages for me. Is that correct?
Yep, and council should see on their screen now the presentation.
Okay.
Yes. This will be my first time doing this, so we'll see what we can do.
We'll give you our
Thank you. That'll be great. The Township of North here in the water and wastewater operations and maintenance, as you mentioned previous to me speaking, the water for Blythe and the water for Wingham will be important to say it has been received. We put the wastewater in for your convenience. So we can probably move to the next slide and probably the next one. So basically we'll go down through the water, Wingham and Blythe through the first half of the presentation, then we'll go into wastewater. Wingham water, we did some variable frequency drive for well 4, and that's to do with work preparing for the water tower. SCADA, for those acronyms bother. SCADA is the supervisory control and data acquisition. So basically the computer to run it. Did some hydrant repairs, supervised a lot of new service installs in Wingham, distribution hydrant flushing. It's occurring this time again this year, right now, I believe. Did a bunch of locates, water service turn on and offs. Of course, we read the water meters monthly and the number of routine maintenance through our CMMS program, computer maintenance system. Blythe, several water main breaks repaired, installed a data logger at well 5, did some service upgrades on the distribution. Computer for the well house was needed for well 5. Distribution hydrant flushing again, then red meters, and of course some other maintenance items. Go to the next slide, please. So the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks did some water inspections for the year 2019. The most recent one in Wingham was February 5th, 2020. That was 100% rating, so there was no recommendations or non-compliances on that one. Blythe had one also completed at the same time. It was only, well, 96% almost. It was because of a missed distribution residual reading. We're required on large systems such as Blythe and or Wingham to do one distribution chlorine residual every day. There was some confusion between the operators and one missed it. So we reported it and everything was done according to the rules when you miss a sample. Noted also in this inspection is strontium levels are higher on the Blythe raw water. That was in a previous inspection also. We have been talking with the health unit, which is now the Huron Perth Public Health. Of course, right now, they joined recently, and plus they're dealing with so many different items on their agenda, I'm pretty sure, than this. But we did speak with John Gee. He was the head of the Huron County Health Unit at the time, and had given us no clear direction as it was fairly new to him. Strontium is a water issue federal number. It's not in the Ontario regulated system, so that's why it doesn't always get reported. It was taken with well 5, so conversations are ongoing. Next slide, please. So the DWQMS, again, Drinking Water Quality Management System. We did an internal audit in 2019 and found 5 minor non-conformances. That's something we do yearly. Some internal audits. An external audit from the NSF International Group was an on-site one. They found 2 minor non-conformances, and we've implemented, addressed them, so full accreditation is issued. So on the other side, the updates are, it's a different version 2 that we had to implement. 2019, everyone did. Scheduling requirements changed, basically a wording of when you do your management review, it's in a calendar year instead of every 12 months. Updated some phone lists. Again, the name change of Huron County Health Unit and many others that we had to update. So, and the ministry wanted us to add a few different hazards this year, so they were added into the risk assessments. Next slide, please. So water taking limits for 2019 in Wingham. It shows the wells and the combined total of what we can permitted to produce a day. So 11,000 cubic meters. The peak flows, so well 3, well 4 combined, the max daily flow was 2,343 cubic meters. So just around 20% of what's allowed. So the average daily flow, so that's kind of an important one. Your average daily flow is running about 10%. So for growth, movement, development, that's a good number to be at. The chart kind of shows stuff on the side, the numbers I just read. Blythe, please, next slide. Same with this one, we have 3 wells in Blythe, so the combined total for the well is, and the daily permit is 3,500 cubic meters basically. So what you want to be concerned with, your max daily flow was about 27% of what's allowed, pretty good range, and your average daily flow from all the wells is around 15%. Again, good number for development. As I see, Blythe is growing and lots of development there, so there's still a lot of water production movement. Next slide, please. So basically on a water quality summary, Wingham, how many distribution residuals were taken, what the averages were. So the average 0.97 milligram per liter, basically look at a milligram per liter as a part per million. We range from 0.4 to 1.6 in there. Those are good numbers. Health unit wants you to be below 4 milligram per liter. So we're in a really good range, and you want to make sure you have a good residual in the end of your distribution systems. Likewise in Blythe, very similar numbers, 0.54 minimum to a maximum of 1.37. It noted before was April 18th. The operator miscommunication, that was our non-conformance item for the distribution. So the other one was the treated residuals from the well houses. So next slide, please. Adverse sample results, there was none in Wingham, 1 in Blythe, which was a coliform, 1 colony forming unit per 100 milliliter. So 1 total coliform and a 1 E. coli. When we opened the campground, the sample came back with a 1 in each of those parameters. The AWQI is called an adverse water quality indicator. The numbers shown there. We're required to resample and upstream, downstream the site type of thing. Send the samples back. They came back clear. So it was something on the tap or something else. There's a number of things can happen, but it's not a concern. It would be much more of a concern if the samples came back, or resamples, sorry, came back with a hit. So that's kind of for water at the moment. We can have questions at the end if you wish about those. Let's go to the wastewater side, please. Same thing, Wingham wastewater. We did some routine maintenance, installed a new ferret pump at the waste plant, added some safety rails around the bar screens, fencing in the gate was repaired, and we did 1/4 of the town for the sanitary sewer flushing last year, 2019. We're gonna try to do 1/4 of the town each year. Blythe wastewater, same idea. routine maintenance, finished the clarifier project that went on a year or two, well, started in 2017. We repaired a sewage pump, rebuilt a raw sewage pump, and we have a gate valve ready to be installed for this year. We bought that in 2019 under capital. Next slide, please. This one, I believe, for some reason, there used to be a little line underneath on the bottom. I'm just going to switch to mine. I don't see it there. There it is. You guys, you can still hear me, right?
Mhm.
Okay, thanks. Findings from this inspection was a recommendation to amend the current ECA. So the ECA is the Environmental Compliance Approval. It's to include accepting co-treatment of septage, Blythe sewage treatment plant, sludge and emergency situations, right one. And septage is to be introduced at the head of the plant, not directly into lagoon cells in Wingham. Well, there's no objections to receiving septage. It would require a proper receiving station. This is all part of an inspection that we had, and it does talk to bringing in porta potty stations, things like that, that this current ECA does not state in it. Therefore, it would have to be opened up, and that's what the ministry is recommending there. Next slide, please. I think that Blythe one has the same thing. I'll just switch over to mine. With the Blythe inspection, basically we're looking at phosphorus has not exceeded the limit, but it's not meeting the objective. They throw a number for an objective where your plant should try to always maintain, but a limit's higher. So it's saying the phosphorus level's kind of right at the objective. So we want to try to work at keeping it below the objective. Although it's not a non-compliance, it was a concern to the inspector. Next slide, please. Wastewater capacities, Wingham and Blythe, there's a bit of a difference on them. They're different plants in a way. Wingham has the luxury of the lagoon, and therefore we can divert any high flows through rainfall or through anything like that that causes head pressure or pressures on the head end of the plant, and divert it and bring it back when the flows have subsided a bit. Blythe not quite so good that way, so it does hit some max peak flows at times. Next slide, please. Wingham, no bypasses in 2019. Blythe, there was 3. 2 were those ones I was talking on based on heavy precipitation, snow melt type of thing. The other, we had to do some maintenance on the clarifier. Therefore, they call it a bypass when you don't have full treatment, you do secondary treatment. So the wastewater is still being treated, but it's not getting the full process of the design of a plant. So yeah, it has the hours that were bypassed and the total volume, which is required to report to the ministry and the health units. Next slide, please. This basically an understanding of some biology and chemistry and wastewater plant operations. It's talking about removal and limits, what you're allowed to have and what you need to do. It's showing the removal rates of biological oxygen demand, BOD, total suspended solids, phosphorus, nitrogen, total nitrogen removal. So Wingham, the average monthly flows exceeded the capacity of the plant in April. When high flows occur at Wingham, we can therefore send it to the lagoon. And as I stated for the one on the right, Blythe, we can't handle the flow through the sound filter, so it does have to be bypassed and reported each time when that occurs. Next slide, please. Just some other final comments. We do have a renewal in about a year's time, I have been speaking with Sean quite a bit about this, and I know there's some items in there that would like to change or address at some point. I think one of the major ones is we don't align with your year end or our own year end in May, so that's just one item, but I have been working with Sean on that. Blythe, we're looking into a blower for the noise that the large blower seems to make a reverberating sound, and it can sometimes be heard. So we're looking in retrofits and or quotes right now to maybe put in for the next capital. And another one I'm working on with Sean and also the BM Ross at the moment is looking into what is required for the Blythe plant by January 2021. We must have zero chlorine going to the to the receiving stream. Right now, it's got a limit of, I believe it's 0.2 milligram per liter, but it has to be zero. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can totally remove the chlorine and put a UV system in like Wingham has, or you can dechlorinate the chlorine by, there's a couple methods of removing it, and then monitor to ensure there's no chlorine to go into the stream. So that's being addressed. So in all, that seems to be the report, and it seems that went fairly well, unless I've been on mute the whole time and I'll start again. Is there any questions?
Before we go to questions, I'm just wondering, thanks a lot, John. And I just lost my screen for the meeting today, guys. Can we, Sean, is there anything you want to speak to about this? Is there anything you'd like to add or any comments, or Dwayne, either one of senior staff there, if there's things that we should be aware of or you're concerned, could you just speak up?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. No, I believe John covered everything off. We have a pretty solid operating, high degree of cooperation with Veolia. So things have been going well. The one thing I wanted to mention, don't be alarmed by the January 2021 requirement for dechlorination. We are working with BM Ross right now on that. Yeah, this is, again, as John mentioned, it is a federal requirement and not a provincial. And even if we aren't in a position to achieve full by January, we'll make sure that the regulators are aware, and we certainly will be well underway in terms of developing an appropriate approach. So you can expect a report coming in the next couple of months with regard to that, because there will be some questions we'll have for council.
Thank you very kindly. I'm just going to open it up to questions now.
I have one through you, Reeve.
Go ahead.
It's to John. Is there any thoughts that we should be putting in a pond in Blythe to mitigate the bypassing? Is that something we should look at in the future?
I think that's a great thought and idea, because right now the ministry does understand there's bypasses, but as we go down these roads of no chlorine allowed in the receiving streams, they're going to want to tighten up the bypasses. There are other ways. We're looking into the filter system or the UV and to get around that problem of bypassing. So it is being discussed with Sean at the moment also.
Okay. My second question was to you, John. The 7 breaks that we had this year in Blythe, were they on the portions of the system that is to be replaced on Mill Street?
I think there were a few there, Councillor Faulkner. I am not totally have a list of them, but I definitely can get that to Sean to forward to you guys where they all were. I don't have every address, so I can't say they're all in that location.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Reeve?
Yes, Anita, may I ask a question?
Chris goes first, then you, Anita. Go ahead, Chris.
John, I was just through you, Reeve. John, I was just curious, when you take those samples from the park in Blythe and they were positives, do you run the water for a certain length of time, or are you pretty certain it was just sort of something on the tap?
I would be pretty confident that it wasn't in the water or in the lines. It would be more on the tap. Not just Blythe, but any area that Veolia looks after under my control is very often you will get a small 1 TC hit, total coliform, that can be caused from earwigs or spiders inside the tap, like an outside tap, and I think that's where they took it from. The E. coli part's a little more alarming, we'll call it, but there is no way the total coliform and or E. coli would have been in the water distribution lines, or it would have showed up on the other samples.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Anita.
Yeah, this is regarding slide 12, the wastewater inspections in 2019. It is talking about significant plastics floating in Lagoon Cell 1. The disposal location didn't provide any type of bar screen. Is that changed, or do we have to change that, or what does this exactly mean?
Well, it means I believe it's an appearance item that the inspector didn't like, that when it's diverted, the flows are diverted to the lagoons and it takes everything away with it. But when we bring the water back in through the plant, it just brings the water in. Basically, any remnants of the raw wastewater before it comes in stays in the ponds. The ponds aren't due to be cleared or cleaned out at this time, but a lot of that stuff probably shouldn't go on to land application, just the lagoon sediment. So the plastics are a concern. They are there at this moment, yes. Bar screens in the near future probably could.
Yeah, is there something mandatory from the where it comes from to divide it, or anything like that, or something about that? Is it mandatory or not?
I'm going to let Sean, because I think I was going to talk about something there, and I think Sean will help me out on this one. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Through your worship, one thing to just in keeping with this this whole train of discussion, when Hutton Heights goes in, one thing that we've already talked to BM Ross about is the need for a receiving station at the lift station. And typically that receiving station would allow the septage that's generated within the township to be brought in there, and then you would capture all those plastics and that sort of thing. There'd be a screening process on the front end. And I think, John, please correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the ministry's concerns is that right now we don't really have a screening mechanism, or certainly they didn't have a screening mechanism the way they were delivering the stuff. So we are looking at options, and the development in Hutton Heights might give a really good opportunity to solve this problem.
Yes, that's
thank
the
you.
way I see it. Thank you, Councillor.
Any other questions or comments or concerns?
Hugh you read, Paul here.
What,
Yes,
Paul?
John. I was wondering, what was the percent of the sewage in the Wingham plant? How much is it being utilized at? The water was 20. What is the sewage? Do you have that number?
I don't have that number offhand. I can definitely get that to you, but I believe the wastewater treatment plant in Wingham, we're still well in its capacity, below its capacity limits. So for development, yes, there's I don't have the exact number, but we're not reaching capacity at any point.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Not hearing any. I'm going to hand it over to Carson. Sorry. Carson for vote. I have a mover and a seconder.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the presentation from John Graham, Veolia Water Canada, regarding the 2019 annual activities review for information, and further that council received the 2019 annual and summary reports for the Blythe and Wingham water systems for information, and further that the 2019 annual and summary reports for the Blythe and Wingham water systems be made available for the public free of charge and posted on the township's website. So as previously indicated, this will be a recorded vote. So Councillor Heffer.
He stepped out for a sec. We'll get him at the end.
Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney. Councillor McBurney, you're currently muted. Can you recite?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that vote carries 7-0.
Thank you very much, Lee. 6.2 is Mike Hauser, Manager of the Public Works, County of Huron, considering County Road 4 culvert replacement project north of town, I believe. Mike, we're a pretty rowdy group tonight, but go for it.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council and staff. Thank you very much for having me today on short notice, and thank you, Carson, for fitting me into the agenda. I think, great. I've got a very short presentation tonight. Wanted to have council in the loop and informed about this work that we're planning on undertaking this coming fall. We have two culverts on County Road 4 just north of Wingham. As you can see, close together. There's economies of scale and some real benefits to undertaking the work of both culverts at the same time. If you can give me the next slide, Carson, I can explain a little bit more. There we go. So both culverts were constructed in 1931, and if you looked at the ends of those culverts, they look pretty good. That's because extensions were added in 2002, but the original structures are not in the best of shape, and they are at the end of their service life. There's a number of defects in them, and the couple of images there show a little bit of that. But also the stream bed is eroded quite a bit through there. So the stream bed is at or below the footings of this structure. So that's generally not a good thing for structural support. As I mentioned earlier, replacing both of these structures at the same time has got some economies of scale. Also, because we're in the same section of road, one road closure and disruption is likely much preferable than two at the same to minimize that overall disruption. We also have a few other things that are issues in the area. So we have some road. It's actually a section of road. It's not between the culverts, it's just north of them. It has some weird drainage issues that we experience through winter times. It's during heavy snow melts, we actually have a small artesian well that comes up through in the middle of the road, causing some significant icing issues that we need to deal with. We also have some drainage improvements. So if you're familiar with the area, we did some work in the intersection of Josephine and County Road 4, some realignments, and we've done some ditching work in there, but we don't have enough of a fall to appropriately drain that. And there's also some conflicts with one of the adjacent homeowners. So we'd like to take care of that ditch improvement at the same time. In terms of timing, we're anticipating this work to begin in the fall, approximately September. We do have a to proceed with the work at that time, and we believe it'll take between 6 to 8 weeks. In this particular case, we're going to use prefab culvert structures, which minimizes the total downtime and a fairly quick replacement. In fact, and we want to issue the tender on approximately May 14th. Carson, if you give me the next slide, I think there's a few additional items. So detours. So we've looked at staging the work, which means allowing traffic continue through there. If we were to do that, we're almost doubling the cost of the work. So it's approximately $400,000 to stage it in that location. Just simply the ditch line and the amount of work that we'd have to build another lane of road effectively for them to work and reroute traffic along that section of road, which is quite cost prohibitive. There's only one residential access point in that area, and that we are able to maintain access for that residence along with garbage pickup. So there's minimal disruption in that respect. But we do recognize that having through traffic north of Wingham might have some impact on the Wingham business area, and we want to make sure that we minimize that through some communication plans that I'll speak to in a moment. There are some local businesses in there, namely Rintools, Braemar, Royal Tea, Brightspan. We don't foresee any access issues there as they can use the local road as they are now. So there should be no interruption in that respect. And in terms of a detour route, which I'll show you in one of the next slides, we are primarily going to be working off of county roads. It's a bit of an awkward location for detours. And Carson, if you give me the next slide, I can talk about that detour. It's a little small on the screen, I apologize, but the main point here to look at is we will certainly want to maintain access into Wingham, into the business and the downtown cores, but we want to reroute transport traffic northbound onto 86 to the east and up around 87 through 12 and around 7. The southbound, we will be routing around on some, I believe there's South Bruce roads, and then around through Whitechurch and back around. We do recognize it's a bit of a detour, but we do recognize that transport trucks need to have good turning movements and good solid roads, which is a bit of an issue with and this is the best we were able to come up with. You can see for the detour plan, there's a lot of signage that we intend on putting up to make a very clear communication to all the drivers. So it's clear that the community is open for business. There's no impacts there. Through traffic will need to work its way around. Carson, if you give me the next slide, please. Can you grab me the next slide? So as I mentioned earlier, we do recognize that there's some potential impacts here on the Wingham area, and we would very much like to work with the BIA and council to work through a communication plan so that we minimize any disruption as much as possible. We certainly are planning on extra signage along the road signs. Than just that. We're also open to doing news and radio advertisements, and certainly I think there may be some opportunity here to do some circulation to businesses within Wingham so they have lots of advance notice, and also they can communicate with their customers and also their deliveries so that they can plan around this construction project. And we are certainly open to any ideas from yourselves and the BIA and others that wish to contribute. My short presentation, and I'm happy to take some questions and feedback and direction on how to work through a communication plan.
Thank you very kindly, Michael. I'm going to open it up to council. Speak up, go ahead, Chris.
Through you, Rave. Mike, when I first saw this, without flipping through the pages, I thought, oh good, Josephine North. It's so perfect. I'm a bit surprised that you're not doing it that way at a very slow speed for vehicles for safety reasons and road hazard problems. How come that wasn't looked at?
Through your worship, we certainly had all options of local roads with a shorter detour, and there's a number of challenges and concerns. Road condition is certainly one of the biggest concerns. Routing additional truck traffic through that local road is a significant concern. And also, Morris Turnberry has raised concerns with residents of the facility there, care facility, and other conflicts with traffic. So there were also some other local roads in the area that were felt that were not sound enough to be able to handle the turning movements and we've unable to reach a satisfactory arrangement with those other options.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, through you, Reeve. But a car, if I was heading north, I'd be able to go out around through the old age home though, right? Like up through the, like, is that going to be completely stopped, Mike, for, let's say if I want to go head north, could I not cut around the old Josephine Street?
Through your worship, so keep in mind the detour plan that it's the posted detour plan that's primarily directed towards transport truck traffic. And that comes up to that new intersection by the gas station. Any local resident who knows their way around can certainly take any of those roads. The only place, and we also plan to putting a hard stop just at the north limits of the gas station, so that if any resident does attempt to go, that's the last place they can go, so they can turn around in the gas station lot. And in fact, any transport truck that does end up turn through in that gas station as well and turn around. Yes, if anyone chooses to drive the local roads, there's certainly, we cannot stop them, and nor do we want to.
Thank you, Mike.
Any other questions? Just shout out. Not hearing any. Thank you very kindly, Michael. We appreciate the information, and we will be in contact with you, and our BIAs will be in contact. BIA will be in contact, and we'll all work together. I don't have a motion for this, Carson, so I'm presuming it's just presented for information purposes.
That's correct.
Yeah, we don't need them. Okay, great. Okay, let's move on then to the clerk's department. There's no report. Finance department. 7.2.1, that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a penalty and interest update report from the Director of Finances dated May 4th, 2020 for information purposes. And further, that the council of Township of North Huron defers the penalty charges on the water sewer billing due April 24th, 2020, May 22nd, 2020, and May 25th, 2020 until July 1st, 2020. And further, the council directs staff to continue monitoring the COVID-19 situation and presents a further report regarding the tax installments due on June 27th, 2020, council consideration. I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder before we have Donna speak to this. Do I have a mover?
I'll move this motion, Kevin.
Okay, Kevin moves it. Seconder? I have Paul seconding. Thank you. And we're going to let Donna speak to it now.
Okay, thank you, Reeve Bailey. So as noted in the report, no decision was made at the March 24th emergency meeting to deal with deferring the late charges on the April 24th water and sewer bill. So that's why we wanted to have that dealt with as part of this motion. And then we'll have another water and sewer billing coming up in May this month, because the way we're working from home and such, all the water bills were sent out on 2 different dates, and thus that is why some of them are due May 22nd and some of them are due May the 25th. So that's the difference there. So basically what we're looking for, if we defer all penalty and late charges to July 1st, it covers off the water and sewer billings up until July, or up until the July 1st point. And then we have the June 27th taxes to talk about at that time as well. So, and then also in addition to that, we can talk about at a later time, there'll be a water and sewer bill due later on in June. So basically, I'm looking for direction as to whether council wishes to continue to provide some relief to the ratepayers due to the COVID situation, and whether deferring to July 1st is a suitable option. So also, I just wanted to give a bit of a background. So as at in March of 2019, after the taxes were due, what was left outstanding for March was $177,000. Where this year we have $205,194. So the taxes were increased, but that works out in 2019 to percentage owing of 7.9%, where this year it's 8.63%. So it's 0.73% increase, which is not quite 1%. So it's about what I would expect due to the situation that we have. But then also, as I said, the prices went up for taxes and water and sewer. So that does attribute to some of it as well. And I can't differentiate between the two. So then also, I just wanted to say last year at the end of March, the outstanding water and sewer bills would have been $23,745. And then at the end of March this year, the outstanding water bills was $26,573. So again, as outlined in the report, we generate about $2,500 a month right now on the March outstanding tax installment, and about $1,300 in late charges on the water and sewer amount, because the percentages are different there. So as I said, we're looking for direction from council as to whether we continue to provide relief, or whether council has some other ideas on that. The whole COVID situation has to be monitored monthly as staff, but we didn't know if whether council would give permission and have this discussed again, not until July 1st. And hopefully by that point, we certainly will have some better information as to where this situation is going. So if anyone has any questions, I can help you with the answers.
Okay, let's open it up to the floor. Conversations. Who would like to start?
Ray, Trevor here.
Trevor, go ahead.
Donna, can you remind me what, if any, do we budget for interest and penalties on those types of charges now? What would be in our budget for those?
Okay, so in our budget for penalty and interest on taxes for 2020, we budget for a total of $60,000. And then on water and sewer, I don't have that number right handy. I'm just looking through my budget to see if I can see it here quickly. Yeah, I don't have the water and sewer budget right in front of me here, Trevor, but I can certainly get you that number.
No, that's fine, Donna.
I have a question for you, Reeve. Donna, is there any difference between having to or allowing a deferral of the payment, say until June? If someone was to, on a normal situation, defer a payment until the next payment, is there a penalty applied to that, or is it only after the end of the year?
No, so under normal circumstances, as soon as the due date comes and you haven't paid your taxes, so our taxes in water and sewer, taxes in particular, they're always due the last few business days of the month, and then penalty, once we process all the payments and such, then the penalty is added on the first day of the next month. And so that's how that process works. But unless you're on a pre-authorized payment plan where you're making the 12 monthly payments, then of course those accounts aren't subject to penalty charges because you're on that payment plan voluntarily.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question. Thank you.
Anyone else? Dawn, I'm gonna ask you, 0.73, that's less than 1% difference between last year and this year. So we're not seeing an impact on anything because that's just normal business in my way of thinking.
Yeah, I'm sure there is a few. We haven't had a whole lot of calls about people wanting to come off of pre-authorized. I think we had less than 6. The last update that I had from the girls. So we haven't seen, as I said, a huge impact or a huge number of calls coming in saying that people can't pay now. Maybe people are just waiting until they get some of their arrears notices and such. But certainly, when people call us, or we encourage them, if they are having problems, to give us a call, and we can try to work out a bit of a payment plan if they're in some sort of, financial distress or that type of thing.
Thank you kindly. Anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns? Not hearing any. I believe I have movers for this, so I'm going to hand it over to Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the penalty and interest update report from the Director of Finance dated May 4th, 2020 for information purposes. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron defers the penalty charges on the water and sewer billings due April 24th, 2020, May 22nd, 2020, and May 25th, 2020 to July 1st, 2020. And further, that Council directs staff to continue monitoring the COVID-19 situation and present a future report regarding the tax installment due June 27th, 2020 for Council's consideration. So this will be a recorded vote. So Councillor Van Hitterson. Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve-Sight.
Yes.
Councillor Falconer. Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that vote carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly. Recreation number 7.3 is Recreation Community Services. 7.3.1, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated May 4th, 2020 regarding the Blythe Festival request for support for information purposes. And further, the Township of North Huron agrees that if needed, the Blythe Festival can reallocate the unused portion of the annual funding received from the Township of North Huron to assist with operational expenses of the Memorial Hall for 2020. Do I have a mover?
Rick.
Rick moves. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Kevin.
Kevin seconds it. Okay, I'm going to have Vicky talk to this first, and then we'll have a discussion.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. As you may recall, at the April 20th meeting of Council, there was a discussion relative to a letter that was received from the Blythe Festival, which requested donations, expressed their need that they needed donations to cover their operating costs for 2020. After some discussion, Council had directed staff to investigate the matter further and report back. As directed, staff did contact the Blythe Festival to gather more information. The details of the discussion are in the report, but I would like to highlight some things that came out of that discussion. Similar to many other businesses and organizations, the Blythe Festival has had to suspend or close its doors for the season. The festival the suspension has basically had a negative impact on their ability to cover their costs for operating the facility. They have attempted to generate revenue and also to reduce their costs. They have laid off approximately 90% of their staff. They've canceled lease agreements, service contracts, and such. They applied for wage subsidies and pursued other funding opportunities, including an interest-free loan. The letter that was received was an initiative of a fundraising campaign that they were undertaking to try to generate some funds to help them cover those costs. It was not directed specifically at the Township of North Huron, but was part of an overall campaign that was sent out to all of their supporters. At the previous council meeting, there was some discussion relative to the reallocation of the funding that was previously provided by the township. That was discussed with the Blythe Festival. A portion of the funds have already been spent on the production of their brochure, but they do have the remaining funds available. Those remaining funds were earmarked for the municipal night that the township provides each year and some miscellaneous expenses. When giving consideration to the request, I think it's important that we note that, although Memorial Hall, the building itself, and is often thought of as the Blythe Festival, it is a township asset first and foremost. If something was to happen and the festival was not able to operate any longer, the building would become would revert back to us and would become an operational cost for the municipality. The other point to consider is that the Blythe Festival is an important cultural asset to the municipality. The festival attracts more than 13,000 visitors to the community each year and generates approximately $7 million in revenue to the community via the visitors eating, staying, as well as the business of the festival itself having to buy supplies and materials locally as well. Since preparing the report and things, I did have some further discussions with Gil, and he did provide a little bit more information and things as well about the Blythe Festival, and that in last year alone, the summer season alone, there was 1,940 tickets purchased by local residents. So they thought that was something significant that we should remember when, considering this, because of our population of just shy of 5,000. There's a huge amount of our community, a huge number of community members who attend the festival and participate. So I hope the information I've provided helps council in making their decision as we move forward.
Thank you, Vicki. I'm going to open it up to the floor now. Would any councilors like to speak to this? Questions, comments, please? Shout out.
Over here. Not really a question, more of an actual comment based on the information we've got. I would tend to agree in the sense that if those funds are being used for the operations costs of Memorial Hall, I personally have no concern over them reutilizing those funds for Memorial Hall. At the end of the day, if Memorial Hall, they can't operate it, it's going to fall to us anyways, and we're going to end up paying for it anyways. So at the end of the day, that was the question that I think I wanted answered, and that's where I think this report really specifies to where they're using those costs. And I commend the information that was given, because that's exactly the information I think a report that we needed in order to make an informed decision on how these funds should be utilized in the future.
Thank you, Trevor. Anyone else? Speak up. Paul? Paul, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, as long as I see those dollars going towards the cost, because I expect that'll come back to North Huron the way Vicki made the presentation there. I can see that, but as long as it goes to complete use for it, because we got the main streets on Wingham and Blythe do need help too. So I'd really like to have seen this defer until more information comes forth concerning the COVID-19, just how long it lasts. That was my thinking.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else?
Rave.
Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Rave. It's not really, it's just my comment. I understand the importance from a cultural standpoint that the festival is to our area. And I guess the big thing is that we have committed the 15,000, and whatever is left, we weren't told how much. I have no trouble with them reverting it to whatever their need happens to be. But I like I said last time we met, I am very concerned. I don't want this to be sort of a precedent-setting thing that we're giving money to this company, because we have many stores and businesses, well, many businesses in both towns, as Paul said, that maybe would like money as well, and we cannot do that. So if this passes, it's imperative that it is mentioned that it is committed money or old money committed to them, like a past commitment that we are just going forward with. I don't want it to be thought of as a new help. Okay, do you understand what I said there?
Yes.
Kristen?
Anyone
Vicky?
else like to speak to this? I'm going to say it.
I'd like to,
Go ahead,
may I?
Anita. Go ahead, Anita.
Yeah, I would like to thank Gil and Rachel specifically for their letter. It was very, it answered a lot of questions, and it makes it clear what they all did for to lower their cost. It was a lot of like what they're doing for the community, and that is important. But I was really concerned about what they did to lower their costs, and that is all covered in their letter. And I support them having the 15,000 that they always received and use it towards their bottom line.
Anyone else?
I have a comment.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'd just like to make the comment, supporting the theater is the best way to support Main Street of Blythe, at least. I don't know the impact fully on what the revenues that we bring into the rest of North Huron, but where the theater is an entity that's bringing in $7 million into our area. Without that, that's $7 million worth of funding that we would have to provide to the storefront owners to keep their livelihood going, or they'd be out of business without something like that drawing the people in. So it is a core employer. It's a core cultural draw, and supporting them is the one of the best direct ways of supporting the store owners that they're in a position when this shutdown kind of comes to fruition, and we get back to a semblance of normal get-togethers, that they're ready to go in order to bring those people back to our town. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just going to speak to it for a second then. I believe it is the right thing to do to support them. It was just not too long ago, Gil invited me down to Toronto with Dwayne, and I believe it was Janet, the other person. Forgive me, I can't remember the fourth person. I believe we left around 8 o'clock in the morning. I think we got home 10 o'clock at night. We sat in front of two ministers and minister staffs, and we asked for support for them for ideas that the theater has moving forward. I spent a day of my life working on that, and I won't get that day back, and I'm happy I did it. And I didn't get paid for it either. But more importantly, from a business point of view, I'm going to be honest with you guys. If we don't support ourselves, do not expect the province or the federal people to support us, or the county. Right off the bat, I'm so happy to hear everything I'm hearing from my council, because it is the truth. If we don't support ourselves, nobody's going to help us either. When they see that we do support ourselves, that's when I can reach out to higher level governments and we can maybe work something out. So I appreciate that, and I just want to put that out there that sounds like everybody's in support of it, and it's understandable. Having said that, Carson, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Blythe Festival, by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated May 4th, 2020, regarding the Blythe Festival's request for support for information purposes. And further, that the Township of North Huron agrees that if needed, the Blythe Festival can reallocate the unused portion of the annual funding received from the Township of North Huron to assist with operational expenses of Memorial Hall for 2020. So this will be a recorded vote. So Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeves Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heifer,
No.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey. So that vote carries 6-1 with the no being Councillor Heifer.
Thank you kindly, folks, and we'll move on now to Public Works and Facilities, 7.4.1. This is that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby received the report from the Director of Public Works dated May 4th, 2020 regarding the outcome of the building condition assessment, RFP outcome for information. And further, that the project be awarded to the Capital Management Engineering Limited in the amount of $27,000 plus applicable taxes for the completion of the multi-site building condition assessments. Do I have a mover?
Chris?
Trevor seconds it.
Trevor seconds it. Okay. I'm going to have Sean speak to this one first, and then we're going to have
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So as the council can see in the report, we've talked about the multi-site building condition assessment since last year. The RFP was March 16th. We closed it April 8th. Despite the provincial orders and the issues surrounding the pandemic, we were able to move forward at least with the RFP. The purpose was to secure proposals for building condition assessments, and as we had discussed before, these assessments would give us really detailed information surrounding a number of the assets of the township. Specifically, we asked for 9 facilities to be included. That was Town Hall, the West Cass Community Center, Wingham Public Works Garage, the daycare, the Wingham Water Pollution Control Plant, the Blythe Water Pollution Control Plant, EW Public Works Garage, the Community Center in Blythe, as well as Blythe Memorial Hall. In the RFP document, proponents were instructed to consider a number of parameters when they put together their proposals, and the idea was that we would get a really good, well-rounded idea or understanding of our assets. So specifically, we needed them to speak to site, structure, the roof, the exterior envelope of each facility, the building's interior, mechanical, electrical, life safety, and fire suppression. And the thinking is that if they looked at all of these 9 parameters, we would have really, as I said, sound understanding. The other thing that they were required to consider in developing their proposal was we wanted to know of any issues that might be specific to each facility with regard to accessibility for Ontarians with disabilities and the act associated with that. And we also wanted a facility condition index, which would give us an idea of the overall financial situation for each building. It would be the value of deferred maintenance over top of the or the over value of the facility. We wanted a report for each facility. But more than that, in the RFP, we asked for a specific 25-year amortization of costs so that we could get a sense of what we're going to be committing to in the short term, the medium term, and then, the 25-year, we understand that that's way out there. But at least if there was a big issue looming a couple decades out, council now and councils in the future would know that these issues were looming. And again, this would give us really a solid understanding of our facility. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In total, I guess everybody was locked in their basements. We had 18 submissions for this project, which took me absolutely by shock. And it introduced a lot of challenges with regard to assessment. So there was an evaluation matrix that was used, and in looking at each of these proposals, we considered no less than 14 parameters to really make sure that we consistently reviewed all 18 submissions the same in an effort to get a really good understanding and to come up with the best bang for the buck. in the interest of time, because as I said, 18, we would be talking about everybody's rating for a long time tonight. Really, the important ones were the top three. So as you can see in the report, we had capital management came in with an overall rating of 94. Pynchon came in with a rating of 92, and Edison came in with a rating of 88.6. And as we get further on, and you can see some of the points that I made here, particularly since we're talking about Capital Management Engineering Limited, they're a very experienced firm and they focus on building sciences. The executive summary that they provided in their sample report was very good. We've seen what they can produce in terms of functionality for capital planning. They provided a spreadsheet that has a lot of interactive tools that would give not only staff but council a really good idea of what they were dealing with. And it also forecasted FCI, so your facility condition under various scenarios. We have used CML in the past and had a very positive experience with it. The other interesting thing is they looked at the community and said, well, we noticed that the museum's not on the list, so we'll, as a value added, we'll offer to do that at no additional charge since we're in town anyways. So once I was done with the analysis, you always need a couple sets of eyes on this. So I forwarded it to our director of finance, who reviewed the evaluation matrix, how the scoring was applied. And Donna also looked at the submissions put in by the top three firms. So she had a really good understanding of what we were looking at and identified no concerns during that peer review. So without going too much longer into this, the one thing I would like to point out is that all of our local service providers were contacted directly and 4 local firms did make submissions. I think it's important to mention that this was an RFP, or a request for proposal process, not at all like a tender. And I'm sure council knows, I just wanted to clarify for the benefit of anybody that's listening. You put a tender out when you know exactly what you're looking for. I want a pickup truck, so I'm going to put a tender out for a 4-wheel drive pickup truck. It's going to be white. It's going to be a crew cab. Have a nice day. And that gets you a price. The price drives because what you've asked for is what they bid, and you're looking for your lowest price. In the case of a request for proposal, you're putting something out saying, I have a problem that I'd like a solution to. So although cost is always important, in this particular case, we evaluated this based on demonstrated experience. And so we wanted to know we were talking to a firm that knew what they were doing. They weren't just going to kind of wing it with us. And that was 30% of the overall score. 25% of the score was project cost. 20% of the score was a sample building condition assessment. Show me what you can do. You know what we're looking for? Show us what you've done that's similar. I wanted to know that their approach, how they were going to do this, was something that would work well with North Huron. So there was 15% was applied to approach and methodology. Clarity and quality of submission was important. You get some really good submissions. You get some really bad submissions. So that was, it was only 5%, but it was something that we looked at, and a delivery timeline. And then the one other thing I should mention is, as far as the sample BCA, in evaluating that, I broke that up into a number. I looked at executive summary, component identification, annual costing in spreadsheet, capital planning, component description, observation of useful life. Did they use STM E 2018-15 standards or something lesser? Was there value added? So there was a lot of small parts went into this as well. And then what else have I missed here to tell you? And outside of that, that we have dealt with capital management before. They are the ones that did the Wingham Armory's BCA, and I thought they did an extraordinary job on it. I would mention that the museum was not on the original list, the museum building. simply because there was one done a few years ago, and council did make some decisions based on that. I've read that report. It was a very well done report, the one that council had before them in the past. Based on what I read in that report, I don't expect any inconsistencies if capital management was to do it again. The benefit would be that when they do the evaluation, if they do the museum, everything will be consistent. So you'll get 25-year broken out over the same different groups or same different headings. So it would kind of align the data with the data in the other 9 facilities. So I'm not expecting anything earth-shattering in terms of a different outcome. It's just it would make it a consistent item. And then as far as finances, as mentioned, we weren't necessarily looking for lowest cost. We were looking for best bang for the buck. These guys were not the lowest. They were 27,000. The lowest was 20,600. But when you factored everything else in, I believe that they would provide us with a really good product, and one that we could use moving into the future. And I should point out that even with this price, we're still $22,920 under budget. So I think because we're so far under budget, it gave us a little bit of maybe a little bit more comfort in looking at different approaches that were out there. And then the last thing that, a couple things, future considerations. Anything that we get out of this project would have to be compatible with citywide. So we're going to make sure that anything that we get would be uploadable. And as far as the strategic plan, I think this one aligns directly. Article 4.4 of council strategic plan, it calls for a review of current condition of township facilities. This would achieve that, and it would further help us to develop that 10-year capital plan to establish saving targets to capital management needs.
Thank you, Sean. I'm going to throw it out to council. Questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a question through you, Reeve.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Sean, I was just curious to if the museum was in that group of buildings, why the fire hall was omitted.
Through your worship, the new fire hall?
No, the Wingham Fire Hall.
Oh, okay. No, sorry.
No,
that's a very, very good point. I think it might have been an oversight, to be honest, and that's something that we could talk to him about it. And in truth, I'm sure I can negotiate something with him on that.
It's just to me, it's more of a building that we're probably going to be using than the museum.
You bring up a very, very good point. A little embarrassed that got missed. And I can, if this passes, I can certainly have a talk to capital management. I don't think there'd be any issue whatsoever in swapping the two.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none.
Reeve?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
If they needed to have a little bit more money to do the fire hall, like we are setting them up for 27,080. What happens if they wanted a little bit extra, and we've already stated this amount of money?
Yeah, through you, your worship. Like I said, I'll have a talk if council's happy with this proposal. I'll have a talk with capital management, and I'm sure at the very least I can expect that he would swap museum for fire hall, and I'm gonna see what if he's willing to go even a little further. But I don't think at this stage of the game I want to talk to him about adding any funds. The 27,000 seemed appropriate.
Okay.
Anyone else? I'm going to speak to this. I know, Sean, you put a lot of work into this. I know staff has put a lot of work into a lot of things lately. This started to take place before the disease came along and the problems we have. This is something that could be done a year ago. And believe it or not, I'm saying this, and I'm the guy that keeps screaming about our asset management plan. I still want to see some work. I want to see some of the asset management plans and how they're coming along. And this would fit right into it. This would really help it. Having said that, in the situation we're in, that $27,000 may come in handy in 8 months. I'm going to suggest that the council turn this down, or defer it to a later date, or defer it maybe until Sean has a better understanding of the fire department. But I, on a personal level, think this is $27,000 that we could spend another time. And I'm sorry, Sean, I know you put a lot of work into this, but I'm going to throw that out there. And having said that, it's going to be up to Carson to do the roll call. Unless somebody else wants to speak.
Reeve?
Yeah, sorry, Carson. Chris would like to say something.
Yeah, I'm just curious, if we defer this to a later date, what does that tell CME with their RFP? Because they put a lot of work into that RFP. It just caused, I'm just wondering if another way of doing it is, well, I understand what you're saying, Reeve. Saving some money for a certain length of time. It kind of, in my mind, it kind of destroys the RFP at this point.
And I wouldn't argue that, Chris. I agree with you. I'm sure they would understand the fact that the situation we find ourselves in is a lot different than the situation when we first started this a while back. And I seen Sean's hands up, so I'm going to get Sean to talk to that too. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I should mention whether this changes anything or not. Just a reminder that this was funded through, or the intent was to fund this through modernization, and this is not something that is tied to taxation. It was a modernization project.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Through your worship, before I call the recorded vote, the other thing, like Sean had mentioned, I was going to mention that this was modernization funds. The other thing too, so the report that was on the April 20th council meeting that outlined the status of projects and whether to go forward or not right away or post-pandemic. So a motion was passed saying that that council directs staff to proceed as directed in that chart. In that chart, this BCA was included as proceeding right now. So logistically, I think we would probably have to have a motion to reconsider to revert that decision.
So first of all, we're going to have a decision on this one, Carson.
Yep. So that's the motion on the floor right now. So if there's no other questions, I can read that motion.
Yep. Let's start with that one.
So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works dated May 4th, 2020 regarding the outcome of the building conditioning RFP outcome for information, and further that the project be awarded to Capital Management Engineering Limited in the amount of $27,080 plus applicable taxes for the completion of a multi-site building condition assessment. So this will be a recorded vote. So Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falcon?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Feeling very lonely. No.
So that vote carries 6-1 with the no being Reeve Bailey.
Thank you kindly. 7.5, there is no report for the fire department. 7.6, the building department has no report. 7.7, the child care department has no report. And 7.8, the CAO doesn't have a report. Correspondence 8.1, the Wingham Ward Police, that the Council Township of North Huron hereby accepts the OPP Detachment Commander's report Wingham Ward for the month of March for information purposes. Do I have a mover? Paul, seconder. Paul and Anita. Trev, did you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. So obviously, because we haven't had, due to COVID-19, police services board meeting for the last this report has came in via the detachment commander. I did want to make note of one thing that I had questioned that I'm going to send to the detachment commander just to get clarification on is in the statistics on page 164 or where it has DAR community safety and mobilization hours. It mentions a number of ride program hours as one, and then the future in the documentation when it talks about the initiatives that there was no ride checks done in March. So just want to get clarity as to whether there was, or do these DAR reports include potentially hours that are reported for the county in our area in Township of North Huron, not necessarily just the Wingham Ward. So I did want to bring that information to your attention because I questioned that as myself when I read the report. So I'll get some clarity on that, and I'll send that out to the counselors just so they're clear on what the response I get from the detachment commander is. But other than that, not obviously a significant change, but obviously a significant. There definitely is lots of information as it relates to trends and that type of stuff. So I think it's an interesting report in order to take the information from. And now, as March is basically the first month that we have comparative data from the OPP as compared to last year, we will be, obviously, I think we should be looking at more of the comparative data to figure out whether those trends are realistic or what as we're going forward. So I just wanted to pass that on, and if there's any questions that council may have that they would wish me to ask the detachment commander directly on my email, I would more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Trevor. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Not hearing any, I'm going to pass it over to Carson again.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the OPP Detachment Commander Report, Wingham Ward, for the month of March for information purposes. So this will be a recorded vote. So Deputy Reeve Syke. Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that vote carries 7-0.
Thank you again. 8.2, Huron Pioneer Threshers, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to send a letter of support to the Huron Pioneer Thrashers and Hobby Association to be included in their application for a Huron Heritage Fund grant. Do I have a mover?
I'll move that, Kevin.
I have Kevin moving. Seconder. Rick seconding it. I'm going to open that up to questions. Is there any questions or comments on that?
I have just a comment through your Reeve. The Thrashers organization themselves do probably 95% of their own buildings, their own maintenance, their own gathering stuff for their curriculum. So they're just asking for a letter of approval to gain some support. I see no reason to not support them in their quest to find some heritage funding.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not hearing anything. Carson, it's over to you again for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to send a letter of support to the Huron Pioneer Threshers and Hobby Association to be included in their application for a Huron Heritage Fund grant. So Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that vote carries 7-0.
Thank you kindly. Council reports, Reeves activity report. I'd like to start off by commenting that in today's package, we had information about the community futures and what great work they do with small businesses all around Huron County. I would like to also point out and congratulate Anita because she now sits on the board of directors for the Futures program, and she's going to represent agriculture for our area. Well, actually for all of Huron County, to be honest with you, because we do funding for all of Huron County. So congratulations, Anita. It was interesting. I got a call this week, and I believe it was Dwayne. We were looking for some place to park the nurses and the front line workers if they couldn't go home to their families because of what's going on. I just want to point out that I picked the phone up and I called Doug Kyvenhoven, owners of the Royal Homes here, and I asked him if they had a place, and he immediately said yes. We have a double bedroom apartment that's never been used right above one of the stores they own on the main street of Wingham. Call him. And then I gave Paul a call, and you'll have to forgive me, I forget Paul's last name right now. Paul owns the Wingham Motel, and I gave him a call, and his wife said, Bernie, we got 7 rooms that can be ready right now. Send them. So we do have lots of support, and it was such an easy call to make because people are so great. So we actually have 8 rooms that we could, and I forwarded that information on to Dwayne and Vicky so they could forward on to the people that need to know. So I just wanted everybody to know that it's just fantastic the way that the people, there's no hesitation. It's just, no, that's fine. We'll do everything we can do. The other thing was the festival. Again, I've already pointed out, I had a concern that if we don't support our local people, our local community, we're not going to get help from above. So we need to really support everybody, and I want to thank everybody for that. That's about it for me. I know I usually babble on, but now I'm going to switch it over to you guys. Is there anything that the council members would like to talk about who sit on boards or committees?
I do, Kevin. Thank you, Reeve. The April 30th meeting of the Blythe Business Improvement Association was held electronically, and was a good success. We had a good turnout. I was kind of worried about the first time coming through with the meetings electronically that they'd have some difficulty, but no, they Mr. Sparling had it quite well organized. Had his pop-ups to come up on screen for everybody. The only thing that came from that the meeting that they were asking for some clarification through me was they were concerned about the time to apply to the CIP, if that would be eligible for an extension, or because they're not being able to get any construction done at this time, and those deadlines can come and go, and they were curious to just see if that was just stopped, dead in the water, or whether there would be extensions to that for them to apply for.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Can we answer that?
Yep, through your worship. So right now, any approved project has 18 months to complete their applications. So quite frankly, a lot of these projects that were approved late 2019, early 2020 aren't due till mid to late 2021. The only one that would be coming up might be the very first take of the program, which was around April of 2019. And even then, we approved at that time. We approved 4 projects, and 2 of them have already completed the work. 1 was near completion. So at this time, I don't see it being a burden. If things carry out for a long period of time, and that 18 months doesn't seem like enough time, we'd have to look into it. But I don't see why council couldn't amend their CIP to accommodate for that.
Okay, thank you, Carson.
Any other council member reports? Seeing none, is there any comments from council members? Sorry, did I hear someone?
Yeah, just me, Reed. I'll just go on to the comments. I just want to say thank you to the councilors to amend their procedural bylaw in order to allow electronic meetings for BIAs. I know, like Kevin has just said, he's had one on April the 30th. The Wingham BIA, I believe, is having one this Thursday. So, you know, I think they're non at the tip to get going to try to figure out what a recovery plan looks like now that the province has started to make their plans. I think they're looking for just some direction as it relates to how that works, but I'll definitely have more information back from that BIA meeting when it happens on Thursday night, I believe, and for the next council meeting.
Thank you. And just while we're on that, we may be able to help you with that because we have our emergency meetings on Wednesday. I believe Wednesday we have another one coming up. And Dwayne, if we can just remember maybe to bring that up with Dave about how we can move forward with, and you're on those too, aren't you, Trevor? Sure, yeah. So we'll bring that up and then we'll be able to come back to the BIAs with information we have on that too, on more of a local sourcing rather than always the provincial and federal and what they're doing. So maybe we can help out a bit that way, Trevor. And again, if you'll remind me at the meeting, because you know me, everybody knows Bernie, he thinks of it 10 minutes after it's done. Okay, thank you very much. Again, is there anything anybody else would like to comment on?
Yeah, Reeve?
Chris, go ahead.
I think I have 2 points. The first one, because we have the hospital in town, are we having requests for daycare for frontline, thinking of nurses? Has that been happening?
Is Vicky on? Or sorry, is girl runs daycares. Val, sorry.
Val.
Val, you on?
Yes, I am.
Can you just touch on that one for us?
So initially we had some contact. Dwayne had been contacted by the Wingham Listowel Hospital Alliance, and we investigated doing childcare, but we directly have had no requests from families requesting childcare through the hospitals or through the nursing homes at this time.
Okay, I do realize that the county has set up 2, one in Exeter and one in Goderich. At least that's for some. My other thought is,
Kevin, sorry, Chris, I'm going to follow up on that just while we're on that subject.
Yeah.
So I do know about the Goderich and Exeter one, and I gave the mayor of Exeter a call, George Finch, and we had a good conversation. And I said just how that worked because that was so far away. And he said that they actually had nothing to do with it. It's a provincial and then through the county, but it was provincially led. And that's where they decided to put them. And because actually that's right too, Val, I forgot we had emails about this too. And so it's a situation where it looks as if we were left out, but or they had done something special, but it wasn't. It was just, that's just the way I believe the provincial government thought the best bang for the buck was going to be. And that's my understanding of it. So we were on top of that one. And I did make contacts with the other mayor to find out what's going on. And as he said to me, I have nothing to do with it. I heard about it in the paper like everybody else.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'll leave my other one. I'll talk to someone tomorrow.
Okay. Anyone else? Not hearing any?
Hey, Bernie.
Yes.
I just wanted to comment to that, to Councillor Palmer's question. Just to reiterate that there has been that discussion. There was discussion originally. We didn't feel it was we felt it was very risky based on the parameters that we were given and potentially the scenario in which we would be given frontline staff emergency childcare access. And if you haven't heard of the news that in Toronto, one of those emergency childcare things opened, and then they were subsequently closed because one of them got COVID-19. So, you know, I think ultimately at the end of the day, we took an approach of safety for staff, as well as the safety of the community. Not saying that we did not want to support frontline staff. That is not the answer. That is not what we wanted. We want to make sure that we support them. We just couldn't figure out with Huron health units how that scenario works, where that can make everybody safe and do also support them at the same time.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, anything else? Not hearing any. Is there any comments by members? Not hearing any. Their bylaws, we have none tonight. Announcement: the next regular council meeting will be held on Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 6 p.m. through electronic participation unless notified otherwise. All committee and board meetings remain suspended until further notice, with the exception of the Blythe BIA and the Wingham BIA meetings, which will be held through electronic participation. We're going to go into closed session now on reporting out. So the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby proceeds at 7:57 to an in-camera session closed to the public to discuss the following: a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on on behalf of the municipality or local board, cross-border services agreements. Do I have a mover? Trevor moves. Seconder? Okay, Kevin seconds. Carson, you want to take a roll call?
Thank you, Your Worship. And the one thing I'll just point out again is you were looking at your clock that's 10 minutes fast. So the time I have here for the motion is 7:47. But other than that, the motion on the floor reads as Reeve Bailey indicated. So this will be a recorded vote. So Councillor Heffer. Councillor Heffer, you're just muted there. So Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yes.
Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes. So having said that, and Carson can follow up if I do this wrong, but I believe we're going to log out now. We're going to take a 5-minute break. I'll try to watch the right clock this time. And we're going to come back in on different numbers, okay? And if you have any problems, just email Carson. Right, Carson?
Yep, that's correct. So council will have the closed session meeting invite. So we'll end this meeting, and then you'll come back in through those credentials, and I just waited like 2 minutes so that I have the meeting set up, and then it should let you in.
Thank you kindly. Later, guys.
Good night.
Good night.